Colon cleansing was one of the first things that got presented to me. So I started to study, because at that point, I was a person who would really take the baton. Like, if you give me something, I'm going to find out to the nth degree how it works. So I started to study the digestive tract. And even though I spent an experiment of about 3.5 years, Ronnie, of just completely, there was no cheat for me. I was 100% raw food for 3.5 years. And I wanted to find out what that does. What is that going to do for my body? And some of the great things that I pulled away from that experience were starting to understand that, yes, getting all that wonderful vegetable matter through your digestive tract is awesome. However, there has to be a balance.
Right.
And this is where things really get very, very strange at, because people in our society tend to be very over acidic. Just the plethora of animal products, the grain products. You go to a fast food place and you get fries, that's acidic. You get the burger, that's acidic. The bread is acidic. And the soda, that's acidic. So it's just complete acidosis. So when people get onto this other way of being, we tend to get too far off into the other side of this alkalinity.
Absolutely.
And for me, it's like this yin and yang, and that's what that book presented me with, and that balance. So when someone's digestive tract starts to get off, and they're somebody who's more radiantly healthy, and they've experienced this peak health, and they've been focusing on juicing and herbs and all these awesome things, I look at first, okay, we're probably in a state where you might be actually, funny enough, too alkaline.
Alkalosis.
Yeah. So, and here's what's going on when we're moving through the digestive tract. So let's go through the digestive tract really briefly, just simply. So you eat the food. Number one, you're chewing. The digestion starts even before it's in your mouth. Just even looking at food starts the stomach juices and all that whole thing. But then we'll talk about the physical aspect. You start chewing, and you're mixing that food with your information. Your DNA and RNA is in your saliva. It's kind of encoding that food. Your food is getting familiar with you before you swallow and it gets into your body. So that helps with assimilation, which is very important. So one of the first things also that she brought to my attention, my wonderful mother-in-law, was chewing my food. So I went from, I can go into a Denny's and be out in 10 minutes. And that includes sitting and ordering. Like I would slam the food and I'm out the door, to where just every time we ate, anywhere we ate, no matter what the occasion, Shawn is always the last one to finish by like an hour, So I'm sitting there with my food and it's just how it is. So we started to have to rearrange my life. Like we had to be at a movie, like make sure Shawn has enough time to eat. And I made it a priority, and it became comfortable and it felt good. It wasn't something I was forcing myself to do. So that's number one. Then we hit the esophagus. It gets down to your stomach, and your stomach should be like an inferno.
Yes.
It should be like the hydrochloric, all the acids should just be hitting that stuff, because that is your number one means of protecting you from stowaways, from parasites, from unfriendly things to get into your body. Your stomach needs to hit that stuff up and kill stuff. Okay? So when we're bringing a lot of alkalinity into that environment, and not just into the stomach environment, but eventually it starts to change the way our blood is constructed and just changes our body overall. It can start to weaken those stomach juices, basically. So that's the other place. Then we move, basically, just to make this real simple, to small intestine, large intestine, colon. Small intestine, a lot of actions taking place. This is where all the real assimilation takes place. This is where your microvilli is located. And these are like these little finger-like substances that start to pull nutrients into your body. Because when we eat food, when you put stuff in your mouth, it's not actually in you yet. It's like a tube inside of you, from your mouth to your anus. It's like this hose. And so the food doesn't actually get into you unless your body pulls it in. It allows it to come in and pulls it in. And so food particles need to be in a certain state for that to happen. And mainly like the amino acids, for example. Your body has had millions of years of evolution to be able to recognize amino acids and pull them in. What I've seen in my clinic, Ronnie, is that consistently people who are like on the standard American deal, they come into my office and they've had these crazy digestive disturbances for years, and they've seen all these experts and no one can help them, and I get them better within 2 weeks. Because what I found is that there's a compound in a lot of grains, in particular in wheat, in breads, called lectins. All right, and these lectins have this very strange ability. It's like an anti-nutrient built into the plant to protect the plant. Okay, so because plants don't have legs, they can't get up and run from you, so they need protective mechanisms for themselves as well. So these lectins, they don't get broken down by our stomach juices. They get into our small intestine, and they have this strange ability to force their way, to bore their way through your intestinal wall and kind of break through your microvilli without them allowing them, like pulling them in. So they can push their way in and create gaps or holes. Like if you lace your fingers together and take a look at the inside of your hand, that's kind of how your small intestine is looking. So then you start to pull your fingers apart, and that's what starts to happen when you're introducing things like lectins into your gut. It starts to open up your gut wall, and that's something that's